After 3 books and a couple of thousand videos, I know that right now, as you watch this video, I've never had a longer backlog of episodes of large-scale black mob violence that I haven't had a chance to write about or do videos about. I'm not talking about the large-scale St. Louis, Baltimore, Charlotte, Milwaukee, the incidents that have kind of a political tinge. No, I'm just talking about large-scale criminality that just kind of happens, that everybody now just believes is normal. I mean, why don't we take a look at the latest example from Detroit, large-scale black mob violence at a carnival in Detroit. And then we're just going to run through in a staccato fashion after that a couple of dozen of things that have happened in the last couple of days.
It turns into chaos when a fight breaks out and teenagers start fighting with police. This happened Saturday night at a carnival outside Southland Mall in Taylor. Mara McDonald live with more on this story. And Mara, we had officers hurt.
We sure did, Devin. We're talking about 5 police officers who were treated for cuts, bruises, scrapes. One officer hurt so badly in this mess, he's going to be off the job for a couple weeks. This is the aftermath. Taylor police tell us multiple teenagers were taken into custody after refusing to leave the carnival and then fighting with police. One was from Taylor, the rest were from Inkster and Romulus. Those who were in the crowd who don't want to be identified tell us the carnival was packed Saturday night around 9:30 when multiple fights broke out. The original brawl started when someone killed a Canada goose, and it escalated to the point someone flashed a gun. Then it turned into one big brawl. Police were called to clear everybody out, and that's when Antonio Hall and his friends arrived and exited their Uber.
We're walking toward the carnival doors, but everyone's getting pushed out because a fight happened before we got there. So these boys started fighting toward the right side.
Hall says it was nuts. Multiple fights, even young women fighting with the police.
I turn around, these females start fighting, and a whole crowd just gets around us.
He was backing up with his buddies when he says an officer came out of nowhere and tackled him.
So he ran over and pushed me and said he thought I was a threat. And I was like, how do you think I was a threat? My hands are in the air like this. I'm in the air like, sir, I don't know what's going on.
He ended up in the lockup and was charged today with interfering with a police officer.
And I didn't even get to go in the carnival. That's the craziest part. I've been there 5 minutes. We was there 5 minutes.
Back here live, Hall goes back to court next week. He says he's not going to get an attorney. He says he's going to bring his buddies with him who will be his witnesses. And he hopes somehow this will all just go away.
Okay, so that's Detroit. Everybody's going to shrug their shoulders and go, well, that's how they roll in Detroit. You'll probably be right. Well, what about this morning in Jacksonville? We had a video this morning about a large-scale episode of black mob violence in Jacksonville. Yesterday, we had an episode of large-scale black mob violence on the BART train in Oakland. It happened on Saturday night. We didn't hear about it for 36 hours, and when we finally did hear about it, the people on the train say, well, this doesn't really happen here before, and we're not going to release the videos because, fill in the blank for your favorite excuse. Why don't we just keep rolling on down the line? Another carnival. This is April the 16th. Bunch of people firing guns. Police looking for suspects. Another movie theater. Waterford Lakes. Large fight causes scare. Each and every one of these things we're talking about here, they all happened in the last couple days. But I think we should look at each one of them as representative of all the other things that we've done on the same topic. Like, for example, movie theaters. How many episodes of black mob violence have we documented in movie theaters over the last 2 or 3 years? Dozens and dozens. And it's a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not an Asian thing. It's a black thing. Okay, now I'll have to contradict myself. This is actually the first time I've seen a large-scale episode of black mob violence at a hookah bar. Though we are starting to see a lot of argy-bargy in Starbucks. Here's something. Easter shooting down in Melbourne, Florida. 1,000 people were there. 80 people, 3 people were hurt. 80 shots were fired. Nobody saw nothing. over in Philadelphia just a couple days ago. A woman was riding her bicycle. All of a sudden, she was surrounded by a large group of black people. This is on the Schuylkill Bike Trail downtown Philadelphia. You know, that's where the urban pioneers go. They groped her, they laughed at her, they taunted her, they threatened her. And nobody said that was unusual. Why don't we move on down the turnpike to Salisbury, Maryland, a place no one's ever heard of, no one's been before. We've done more than a dozen episodes of large-scale black mob violence in Salisbury, at the university, at the malls, and in the parks, and just in everyday life, just showing off. Here's a little episode from Coney Island. A bunch of black people beat the hell out of a guy. Turns out they had a beef. Surprise! Here's kind of a weird story out of Miami. They kind of present it as this one black woman getting, one black woman and three of her friends get shot in a park and ride in Miami, but they don't tell us that there was a huge fight on the bus on the way to the park and ride after leaving one of the clubs. This is the let-out fight. That's a black thing.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Dixon.
Jasmine Dixon is seen on social media, a young woman with a bright future, but instead, her family tonight is grieving. Dixon killed over the weekend at the parking lot at the Golden Glades interchange. Her group returning from an evening out on the town, heading back to their vehicles when gunfire erupted.
We are trying to do all that we can to get her buried properly and in somewhere. We are accepting any kind of help that we can get at this time.
This afternoon, her father told us Dixon was working and about to head to college. This is a photo taken of her, along with friends, a short time before the tragedy. Quanisha Hepburn and Denisha Goldburn were also shot and seriously injured.
We just heard gunshots and everybody started scattering different ways.
Mr. Dixon thinks the trouble initially started on the bus.
It was called a bus party, and I heard that some type of altercation happened, and everybody just started running out of the bus, and then guys just started shooting, and everybody started dispersing everywhere.
Another woman was injured by a vehicle racing from the scene. Police want to find the driver and passengers of a white or silver Hyundai.
And 6 of the fellows were arrested for shooting a guy after he was just acquitted for murder. Guess they felt they would even the score. And a large party in New York City. One guy got stabbed. A bunch of people were fighting. Why don't we head over to East Lansing? A couple of fellas doing a little bit of the let-out fighting with the lovely ladies. Think there were a couple of white people involved in that fight too. It just, what was less than 2 weeks ago, we did a big story about Black Spring Break centered on Biloxi. But it was centered in Biloxi, Mississippi, but it really was kind of around the entire Gulf Coast there. Lots and lots of argy-bargy. I mean, the weirdest story was it was so crowded there that large groups of black people were just driving into the neighborhoods, the largely white neighborhoods, parking their cars and opening up their barbecues on people's lawns. In the video we did, there's one lady saying, "Listen, my husband and I came home and saw this. We just drove away because we didn't want to start anything, because they basically know, getting into a jam with black people doesn't turn out well for white people." Down the road in a place called, near a road called 30A, it got this black mob violence in and around spring break got so bad they put it on an emergency curfew. And when they did the story, they had interviews with all these 13-year-old little white kids as if they were the ones causing the problems, as if they were the ones fighting the police, throwing rocks at the police, causing property damage, creating enormous amounts of violence. I mean, just every day we're confronted with the enormous difference between what a newspaper and TV said is happening and what is really happening. That's probably the biggest contribution of this channel. Just we constantly show it. There's a mountain of that out there, and we need a mountain of evidence to fight it. Up in Seattle, it's a weird weekend in Seattle. Just a couple days before this incident I'm about to tell you, a guy turned himself in. He shot 5 people at a bus stop. Oh yeah, the people at the bus stop, they had just left an anti-Trump rally. So this black guy got in some kind of thing with somebody, start shooting the place up. That weekend, after that, this would a couple days later, they had a anti-Trump rally. A couple days after that, a bunch of black people go into a 7-Eleven, steal a case of beer, and of course some snacks, because, you know, what is a case of beer without some snacks? All of a sudden the cops are chasing them. All of a sudden there's a bunch of gunfire. At least 3 cops were injured, maybe 4. Perp is dead. Nobody really cares that he is either, no matter what kind of crocodile tears they're crying. Over in Norwood, which I think is in Ohio, a bunch of black people got together, and they did this over a period of time. They decided they were going to target, harass, and throw rocks at gay people living in an apartment complex. The reporter wants to know, well, why didn't you go out there and challenge them or something like that? It's like, hey, you go out there. We're going to throw rocks at people. And down in North Carolina, a bunch of black people decided they'd have a little bit of fun by finding a white homeless guy sleeping under a bridge. They beat the hell out of him. Permanent brain damage. And here's a taxi video. You know what? Somebody should do a channel just on taxi videos. Somebody should do a channel just on bus videos. So many videos of stuff happening on the bus. The bus companies, they don't like giving it out. But, you know, the bus companies are public companies. It's just a question of somebody going down there and putting the right words on a piece of paper, saying, hey, under, you know, appropriate state, local, and federal Freedom of Information Act laws, I want to see all your videos. So, yeah, talk to a bus driver. The stuff I'm about to tell you happens every day. And this happened, to them every day. So let's move on to Des Moines, Iowa for our last one. A lovely young lady in Des Moines, Iowa was on the bus, and all of a sudden, 5 of the fellas get off the bus, but before they leave the bus, they decide they're going to beat the hell out of her. Now she has concussion, headaches, nausea, neck pain. All sorts of bad things are happening to her. This is Des Moines, Iowa. On a bus. And they went to the bus company and they said, well, we can't release the video because that would impede the investigation. That's kind of, you know, I think a lot of people learned that kind of construction from Obama. Remember, Obama would say stuff like, well, I believe in competition. That's why we have to nationalize the healthcare business. I believe in free enterprise. That's why we have to buy General Motors. I mean, it's like they put these two things together that are totally unrelated and hope that you don't, notice that little thing in the middle doesn't really connect these two connecting events at all. But at the same time, we'll come to something like this where we string together 20 or 30 events that happened in the last couple of days, and the same kind of people will look at these things and go, boy, Colin, I don't see it. I just don't see any pattern there. You really see something? Colin, you really see something there, Colin? Huh. You know, Colin, you better knock that off, or you're going to make a lot of black kids angry.